So a very good friend of mine who was a baby boomer just like myself said that his daughter was telling him one day, your generation doesn't even know how to make a PDF on the computer. And I thought about it for a while and I said to my friend, you know what? Ask your daughter this. If she should ever be on a plane that happened to accidentally go down, over water, not a crash landing, let's say they ran out of gas or they had some technical difficulty, but, nobody died, none of that stuff. And they were on a remote island and they needed to build shelter, they needed to get food, they needed the basics of life. Ask her, who would she rather have on that plane with her? The guy that can make the PDF or a guy that can work with his hands? And my friend looked at me and he actually laughed. He goes, I'm going to tell her that. Well, this video is about the skilled trades shortage and the fact that nobody wants to do this anymore. I was born in 1950. I was brought up. My pop was a plumber. I used to go with him during school vacations and, holidays. And that's how I basically cut my teeth in the trade. But we're going to talk about that when we get back. So stick around. Hey, welcome folks. Bob here from Bob'sPlumbingVideos.com. On this channel, I provide free plumbing tutorials for people who don't want to call a plumber. No scientific data, no fancy chemical breakdown of the materials I use in these videos, just common sense solutions to everyday plumbing problems. After all, folks, you shouldn't have to take out a mortgage to be able to afford a plumber. If you're new to the channel, I highly recommend you subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit that bell notification so you'll be notified of when I post a new video. Now, let's get into this video. Oops, I almost forgot. Get lost. And by the way, I do know how to make a PDF. Anyway, so I grew up in the 60s. I was born in 1950, grew up in the 60s, and my father was a plumber who had a partner. He was partners with a licensed plumber, and his partner was a suit and tie guy, bow tie, as a matter of fact. My dad was the worker. They also had a couple of other employees. But let me back up a second. I was going to public school, and then up until junior high school, when I graduated junior high school, I then went into a 4-year trade school. Now, the 4-year trade school, which was called, the curriculum at that time was called automatic heating. And basically, they were training you to be an oil burner mechanic. And in the mornings, you would have your academic subjects, and in the afternoons you would have shop. So in the freshman year, the shop class was basically, I guess, what is known today as HVAC, but we learned all about duct fabrication, making ducts, how to construct them, put them together, insulate them, etc. So that was the afternoon class in my freshman year. In my junior year, we had academia in the morning. In the afternoon, we had pipe shop. So we learned all about pipe fitting, cutting and threading, and putting together offsets and all sorts of piping configurations. Then in my junior year, again in the morning, academia, and in the afternoon, it was basically about how to wire an oil burner. That's what that entire junior year was all about. So the shop class was the electrical aspect of wiring an oil burner. Now, senior year got really interesting. Again, in the morning we had academia, and in the afternoon was shop class. Now, in this shop class, if you can imagine, there was about 20 boilers, oil-fired boilers. And they had a rafters. They actually had like a second floor constructed above the classroom, and up there were radiators. And basically, in that class, we put together everything we learned over that 4-year period. So we would actually set the burners in the boiler, set up the electrodes, set up the nozzles, etc., pipe the boiler, pipe it to the second floor, hook up the radiators. It was really quite an interesting class. And we were put into teams, 2 guys at a time. And basically the whole senior year was spent putting together, configuring heating systems. And I think the final test at that time was, the teacher would come in and sabotage a job in terms of, the burner wouldn't come on, or there would be no heat on the second floor. And we would actually have to go in and troubleshoot it And based on that, we either passed or failed. Well, needless to say, I passed. I graduated in 69. And a year later, I got drafted into the United States Army. And at that time, they were sending everyone to Vietnam. They asked you, what do you want to be when you get out of basic training? And I thought to myself, what's the point? Because from what I understood, they were shipping guys right out. Well, anyway, I told them I was a plumber. And sure as heck, when I got out of basic training, my job came down as a plumber. I was shipped off to Colorado, where I was put into D Company, the 52nd Engineer Battalion, and I was a plumber. I was with electricians, carpenters, etc. So long story short, I basically had 8 months left in the service, and I got orders to go to Vietnam. Took a 30-day leave. When I got to California after my 30-day leave and presented my orders, they told me that the minimum tour in Vietnam was 1 year. So they sent me back home for 7 more days and then sent me back to Colorado, where I finished out my 2-year obligation in the United States Army. Anyway, when I got back, I went to work for Pop. His partner has subsequently died at the time, and I eventually figured out that if we were going to stay in business, I had to go get my license, which is what I did. So I got my license in 1978. I officially started my business. Now, I was brought up in the service and repair business. We installed faucets. We fixed leaks. We fixed toilets. We installed toilets. People called plumbers at that time. And I guess in 1978, there was a pretty good pool of labor to choose from. But as time went on, things got worse. As the year 2000 came around, it became increasingly more difficult to find people. I was a growing company. I had gone essentially from myself to 1 truck to 2 trucks to 3 trucks, including myself. So I guess you could count that as 4. But anyway, we needed more people, and I interviewed for about a year. I had people coming in here. We would put together a 35-question kind of basic aptitude test to see what these guys knew. Because everybody that came in here said, I've been plumbing for 5 years, I've been plumbing for 3 years, etc. Well, out of 35 questions, they couldn't even answer 10 questions. And I was getting so discouraged. Put on top of that the fact that they had DWIs, they had speeding tickets, and my insurance company said to me, if you hire these guys, basically we're going to drop your whole company. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. What am I going to do now? Like hire a chauffeur to drive the plumbers around? Don't laugh. I know some guys today that Uber their plumbers around, if you can believe that. But nevertheless, I saw the writing on the wall. I said, you know what? This was in 2004. I said, I'm going to be a babysitter. You know what? With the load of work that I have, I actually tried to buy another company, and not so much for his customer base, but for his labor. But at the time, he was going to pass the business on to his son. So I threw my hands up, long story short, and I sold my company. Now, if I could go back and do it, on the one hand, I think to myself, maybe I shouldn't have done it. I did it too soon. At the time, I was 54 years old. But seeing where the industry is today, let me tell you, folks, nobody's calling plumbers anymore to install faucets, install toilets, fix little leaks under the sinks, etc. They call handymen, and with the advent of YouTube, and I'm guilty of jumping on the YouTube bandwagon, I show people how to do basic plumbing chores. And, some plumbers don't even call that plumbing. They don't see fixing little leaks under sinks and installing faucets as plumbing. And, whatever turns you on, if that's what you think, that's fine. But in my world, this is what plumbing was. This is what plumbing is. But in today's world, you cannot survive anymore in a service and repair business. That's my opinion, because the market is just not there anymore. On top of that, you just cannot find people. And what do you have to do? As I was always told, is, you have to grow your own. I kept hearing that phrase, you have to grow your own, you have to grow your own. Well, that's all fine and well, but that's a time investment, a money investment. And what happens typically is after a guy gets a little confidence, he's with you a year or two, and he feels he can do most tasks that he's asked to do at your company, you know what? I'm going to go out on my own. Why should I work for a boss? So they end up leaving, and then you have to start all over again. The other option was to go out and steal guys from your competition. Now, I never did that, but I often would have guys from other companies come to me and ask me, I'm working for XYZ company. I'd like to come and work for you. And, my policy at the time was, well, you know what? You tell your boss that you came in to see me, or you tell your boss you're not happy with what's going on, because I don't want any part of getting a phone call being accused of stealing his men. Anyway, I never got involved with the plumbers union. I did have the opportunity out of high school to get involved with the plumbers union. And at that time, it was the local one plumbers union in New York. And it was a 5-year apprenticeship program. And the fact of the matter is, where I had to go, which was going to be at night, was in such a terrible neighborhood that I was afraid that I wouldn't survive the 5 years. And basically, I just, that went out the window. I said, I'm not going to risk my life, for an apprenticeship in the plumbers union. That was at the time. That was back then. That was probably 70, 71, 72, somewhere in that range. And I decided that I was going to stay in the service and repair sector. Now, in the service and repair sector, you learn a lot of aspects of plumbing. You have to open up walls. You see things that you would never dream of, versus the union. The union, you would learn all aspects of plumbing, but generally when you got out and you got your journeyman's card, you would be hired. And I know a lot of guys that did only one thing, who hung cast iron, or who did fixture setting, who did, water lines, etc. They didn't do everything. They specialize in one aspect, whereas the jobbing plumber, which is what I was, we basically were a jack of all trades. So in a residential setting, we could go in and do anything. Now, I heard stories of people who hired union guys that were furloughed, who came and worked for them, and, all right, go lift up that toilet bowl, break the floor, and change the lead bend. And it was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't do that, because they're used to working in brand new open spaces. And so that wouldn't work out. So come to today. Today's 2000 and almost 20. It's 2019. And I think the shortage of skilled trades has gotten even worse. And I know I have colleagues in the business who are still running larger businesses, and they're not doing jobbing. They're having to take on bigger and better work, more extensive work, more involved work. But in order to survive, that's what you have to do. And they're being approached, by skilled people working for other companies looking to jump ship. And that's really a shame, because if you have a good guy that's working for you, take care of him, man. Take care of them. You got to give them medical. You got to give them benefits. And it's hard for a private company to do that. But if you're a successful private company, there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. I know companies that are extremely successful, and they don't want to share the wealth. And then they bitch and moan about when their guys jump ship. And you know what? You got yourselves to blame, guys. So basically, that's my rant. My rant is basically that I got out in 2004. I took a little 2-year hiatus. I started a handyman business. I didn't want to be bothered with employees anymore. I didn't want any part of it. I couldn't deal with it anymore. The insurances, all the regulations, and talk about regulations with the building department regulations today in New York, it's becoming increasingly difficult to do work. They're making the licensed plumbers the villains. They want us to police the industry instead of them policing the industry. And I said, you know what? I didn't sign up for this. I want to fix things. I want to help people. It brings me great joy to help people. I love fixing and solving people's problems. And that's what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for the business aspect of it. And that's where my shortcoming is. I am a guy that works with his hands. I'm not really a guy that works well with his head, unfortunately. But if you really want to make money in any business, you got to do it with your head. You know, your hands are going to get you so far. But at any rate, so I was in the handyman business for a little bit and then came to realize that people want to pay $50 for a handyman. And still I had insurance, I had truck insurance, etc. You know, and there was no way I was working for $50 an hour or even, you know, $100 a day or whatever the case may be. What did I say? $50 an hour? Anyway, I'm just ranting, so don't pay any attention to me. This is the way I talk. So I decided in 2012, I said, you know what, I'll start Roberts Sessa Plumbing, which is what I did. It's just me. I work alone. You know, I take the calls as they come. I basically pick and choose my calls. I'm able to do that. Don't forget, my kids are grown and gone. My baby's going to be 40 years old on July 2nd. My wife still works. She's a school teacher. And I like being in the game. I don't like what's going on in terms of the regulation that's going on with the building department. I can't stand it. So I have a few key clients I do work for. They keep me busy enough to the point where, you know, I'm not looking to get rich and make millions anymore in this business. If I was a younger guy in today's world, I have some ideas on what I would do. But at any rate, that's what it is. There is a serious shortage of skilled trades. Young people don't want to do this. I mean, they look at us like prehistoric monsters. And hey, what can I say? I mean, this is the way I was brought up. This is the way I was taught. Somebody has to fix the toilets. Somebody has to fix the leaks. Somebody has to fix the lights. Somebody has to build the furniture. And it's not going to be that person who can make a PDF, I can tell you now. The millennial market or customer base is really a peculiar bunch of people to do work for, because they expect instant gratification at the push of a device, and that's not the way it works in the trades. You know, there are things that have to be investigated. You have to go out, use your head, and things aren't always as they seem. So you have to take it step by step. It's not, you can't just click a button. It's not like click a button and you get your Starbucks or your Dunkin' Donuts. That's not the way it works. So anyway, listen, that's my rant. Yes, there is a serious shortage of skilled trades. Again, you either grow your own, and you're going to have to invest the time and the money, or you steal from the competition, or you wait until the competition is not doing the right thing for their really good employees and they jump ship. And that's just what's happening. There's a lot of work out there, but the plumbing contractors are having a real damn time finding people. As a result, guys that should have been out of the business are still in it, because they just can't find people. I mean, you can only, for the good people they have, I mean, how much can you work them? They have families, they need time off, etc. You can't work them to death. And it's a serious, serious problem. And I don't know how that's going to change. But speaking for myself, I'm still here. I'm still in the game. Like I said, I pick and choose the work I want to do, but I enjoy doing the work. You know, it was never about not enjoying doing the work. It was the business part of it that actually got me crazy. And then, you know, nobody's going to do a job as good as you can. And that was my downfall. I expected anybody that worked for me to do what I did. And that was completely wrong. You know, people work at their own pace. You can't expect people to do what you do. And I just couldn't deal with it. I was basically micromanaging my company, and maybe that's a lot of the reason I had trouble finding people, because people thought I was crazy. This guy's crazy. At any rate, that's my rant, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't bore you to death. If you found this video helpful or insightful, you know, just make a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, just hit that notification bell, and coming up here to your right should be a couple of videos that YouTube is going to suggest, and actually one of them I suggested, and excuse me for the dry throat, but that's just the way it goes when you're doing live video. Anyway, I hope to be seeing you guys in the next video. Stay well, and I hope to be seeing you guys real soon. Happy plumbing.